And Jesper, are you with us?
Yes.
Excellent. So, guys, I want to introduce Jesper Ottosen. I really hope I said your last name correctly.
That was fine, Joe. Thank you.
Excellent. So Jesper is a test manager at NNIT in Denmark. He has quite a lot of experience on development projects, infrastructure, and operations as well. And he's very active on his blog as well as in Twitter. And again, for those of you who are active on the web, then you've heard or read about Jesper a lot. Jesper will be talking about shifting, something that is more than simply shift left. And Jesper, I think that you have the floor.
Thank you. Just get this screen sharing and should have my screen now. Thank you for the introduction.
Just if you could get closer to your microphone, I think that would be even better.
Yes, I'll turn a bit up. How is this? Better?
Now it's better. Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you. Yep. So my name is Jesper. I'm a test manager, and we are here on the online test conference. As you know, the Slack channel is open for you to discuss. Go into the day 1, session 2 channel. I'll be in that when this talk is over. You'll also find good information on Twitter, on the online test conference and hashtag. And there's mine as well. So in case we forget, I put it in the bottom of all the pages. So the topics of this talk I put on the screen here is briefly about trend or shift called shift left, briefly about shift right. And then I'll dig into more details on shift subject matter expert, shift coach, shift deliver, and shift operations. But let's start with the first one. There we go. So shift left has been around for quite a long time. And it's really about doing a lot of testing through code, having test automation and testing, having it early on, having it continuously in the form of continuous integration. I also see this happening using BDD, behavior-driven development, where you discuss with the customer or the client or the product owner on what to deliver, and then you deliver it. But the thing is, with BDD, you can also write the specifications in a language that can be somehow turned into semi-automated tests. And also, there's some great books about it. There's both a book called How We Test Software at Google and How We Test Software at Microsoft. They talk about the roles of the software development engineer in test. So,
Jesper, just a comment. People are saying that the voice is not coming very, very clear. So if you can talk closer to the mic or something like that, I think it'll be a little bit better.
okay.
You want to try now?
Yeah, yes, I hope so.
Oh, now it's better.
Okay, thank you. So there's a lot of, we can read a lot about shift left out there in the world. I'll not dig into that. There's also one called shift right. And I know from 10 years ago, we would be very startled about shift right, because shift right is all about testing in production, actively testing in production, having tests that run in the production environment. There are some great examples of that. There's both the beta releases and the canary releases that I know Google does on some of their releases. You can also do A/B tests, so give one set of features to one part of your customers and another set to the other parts. There's also talk about feature toggles, that you can toggle off the features on and off. And there's even talk about something called the chaos monkeys that actively close down connections in your service architecture. And all of this can actually be a great mitigator of risks. But what we need to do is to have a lot of monitoring in your production environment. So to do shift-right well, you actually should master continuous deployment. That is, you need to be able to fastly repair or recover from whatever things have gone wrong or things you might want to remedy. But automation is no silver bullet, and this was just a very recent blog post by Bass. I was just taking this in to look into a bit that shift left is not everything. We cannot automate everything through testing. We cannot replace testers. It's different mindsets that needs to be added. It's also about automation and tools that support testing and not take away testing entirely. Is the audio good now?
It is better, I think. Still, some people have a little bit of issues, but again, don't worry. We'll keep as it is. It's better.
Okay. Right, but what I'm hearing from my colleagues and from the community is that testers are really threatened by shift left and shift right. They're saying, what's supposed to happen to me now? What's going on? And actually we can use shift left and shift right to address these goals and say, this is what is happening. And instead of talking about whether this is good or bad, I would like to check, okay, so when we do a lot of automated testing, we can actually move into other things that will help us grow as testers or continue to add value. So one of them is being the subject matter expert. Being the subject matter expert or the product owner is actually something that I see in a lot of my colleagues in the testing sphere. They get to own the knowledge about the product. They know everything about it. And this is from people working on like an app where you can purchase things from others. So this is from people being in telco field for many, many years. The testers become, the product owners to some know. They get to know everything about what's going on in the product. So one thing that is happening, I can see, is that we turn towards being the subject matter experts. But there's also another thing happening, is that testing is actually done by the subject matter experts. Now, this could be user experience experts, it could be the business users, or this could be network technicians and other people having the knowledge needed to do the testing. So one thing is, for instance, in large SAP applications, it's really often used that it's the business that go in and do the testing. It's not professional testers, it's business users. So actually this reminded me that I, a long time ago, thought that UAT testing or user acceptance testing was going to be that. But I'm sure now, no, it's actually thriving very well. It's probably not striving with me as a tester adding into the mix, but I need to move to where I can help the business users doing the testing. So while I was doing this, I was working last spring on a project where we were doing test automation and adding agile practices to a development team. We were doing 3 amigos, we were doing some test automation, some BDD work. And at the same time, I was working on an infrastructure project where we were doing some network virtualization. I can talk a lot about that, but that's another talk. It's coming up a bit later. But I was an internal consultant. My activity was actually to help the team get better in testing. So I was thinking, actually, I was acting like a coach. I was focusing on the testing and not the testers. So that was interesting because in February this year, Katrina Clocky from New Zealand actually wrote a blog post about the test manager versus the test coach. The test manager was, in her context, typically a line manager, so the test manager actually had the responsibility of a range of testers. For many years, I've only been a test manager without having the line responsibility, but the, so to speak, project responsibility. But Katrina set up a great blog post comparing the test manager to a test coach. That the test coach for many contexts would be similar to the agile coach, just in a testing context. Oh, and that reminds me, I'll be linking to her blog post afterwards, so you can see it here. So she did some further work. She did, how can we start a test coach role? It's a very recent one. She also did a test coaching competency framework article. And also Stephen Janaway has been talking about the test coach. So this is actually a thing now. You can go out and discuss what's happening when I lose my job as a test manager, but get towards to be a test coach. He has 2 talks about that. You can see it on the test dashes. So that was really interesting, I thought. To have to be a test coach, to have to name the pattern. And that's really what I do as a tester. I identify patterns, I put a name on it and say, this is, let's call this what's happening here, a test coach. And then I can actually move with this and figure out if I'm okay with it. If I'm okay with the shift left, I can find out whether I will do more of a subject matter expert or other things. So, as I told you, I also do test management on infrastructure projects. And I decided what would go where. I would decide whether or not all the controls and QA gates were completed. I would control what went into the change control box of an ITIL context. I also control on a server migration project everything that went into the change requests. I was controlling the pipeline on what actually went through production, towards production. I was also doing a bit of change management in the ITIL context. So there's perhaps sometimes a crossover between those tasks. I was, with Alan's word, actually responsible for everything that went from the moment the code was checked in until it hit production servers. So this was Alan when he was working at the Microsoft team. So he was a test professional, having the responsibility of what went through the pipelines. So I think from what I'm experiencing myself, for what I'm reading through Alan's work, that shift delivery is actually happening. We can be both a tester, but also work in delivering software. And Abby Banksar at the ThoughtWorks, they actually have some tools to support working with specifically with pipelines and gates. And then Ashby has a great article about continuous testing in DevOps that we can actually test in every step of the DevOps lifecycle. I can also see that we shift to work in the operations domain. As I mentioned, I did a server migration project where we moved a range of servers from one data center to another data center. I worked on a network virtualization project. We could also work on an infrastructure as a service project that is on the infrastructure side. We can also work around acceptance testing in the sort of doing operational acceptance tests to help whether or not the whole service is accepted or not. And then in that, we're actually more working about that it's more about testing in different contexts than it is actually about software testing. In these examples, there's no software, It's just infrastructure, storage, network, perhaps antivirus. So Mike in New Zealand, he did a talk. He did a small webinar on this, doing environment provisioning testing, and I did a talk about this last year, and I'll be doing a talk about it again next year. And then what I do is I try to recognize what is happening around me. I try to identify it and shift. And what you can do is also try it out, talk about it, and write about it, and experiment about it. And you can actually change the way you add value. And that's let's see it. Just leave it.
Okay, excellent. So I think, Jesper, we're done. We can actually go to some questions, right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and I guess that most of the questions have been going over Slack. Give me just a second. I actually want to start by one of my questions and give some time for additional people to actually continue asking questions by themselves. The first question that I had, and I was going over that, and one of the things that even people were asking previously on additional chats was, do I need to be more technical? If I want to make that shift to the right and start working more in production, do you believe that people need to be more technical in order to do it? And if so, where should they actually go into?
Let's just go back to here. So talking about shift left, yes, it's to me it's a choice. Obviously, if you can see that so the projects that we're working on is moving towards more test automation, and you want to improve in those skills and pick up the tools you need, pick up Selenium or pick up some other automation tools that will help you in that context. But be aware there are also other ways to add value.
Okay. A question here from the Q&A. Do you have any tips on how to handle competing priorities, overreaching views of production versus technical checks and fixes? How do you manage to get the priorities straight when you're both doing your job as well as trying to shift?
Well, the shift would be it's a change that you have to do yourself. You have to experiment. You have to do one step at a time as a learning opportunity. Obviously, if you can get your company to help you with that, that'll be fine. Otherwise, you can get some training from the greater testing community.
Okay.
Was that an answer? I'm not sure.
A question here that it's about, again, around the same area, but it's a little bit different from a different perspective here. Have you had difficulty with people being unhappy that you're moving into their areas, that you're basically stepping into their toes? For example, if you shift over operations and deployment team in place, do you see any pushback from them saying, hey, this is not your area, it's mine?
No, on the contrary, I see people wanting this help. I see that the network technicians, they say, I don't know how to test. Tell me how to go about this. And I can then help them do it. I can help them discuss what is most important to test, how to approach testing, and how to register the test results. So I'm also hearing this from the project managers, both in the operations project, but also in the other context, that they want that help.
Okay. And now a question from my side, because my experience sometimes has been different. And my experience has been that sometimes seeing people trying to shift, they do get pushback a lot from their management saying, hey, you know what? Your expertise is in testing. Why don't you stick there? What would you answer to someone whose attitude is to say, hey, I understand what you're trying to do, but I prefer that you stick only to your field of expertise?
Yeah. So my question would be, my suggestion would be to consider whether you are okay with that change. You want to be doing then the tasks they want you to, but I'm sure also that you can add value in the others. Obviously, if they say, no, you cannot do change management, then figure out, okay, then I shouldn't go there.
Yeah, shifting management is usually a good idea when you find yourself not in the right place, and definitely not at the right time.
Yeah, but also it might be then to consider to move elsewhere. You can use those skills you want to use.
Okay. A question that was also asked on additional places. Do you think that people should actually start reviewing more knowledge on data management, data science? Have you seen that? And if so, exactly where? Because obviously data science is a very broad area. What do you think about that?
I haven't seen any things regarding data science.
Okay. Excellent. So, Jesper, I think that at least for the questions right now, it sounds like we're more or less go. Obviously, guys, you're more than welcome to continue on the discussion within the Slack channels. I also see that we already have the diagram of your session. Jesper, thank you very much for your thoughts on this and for your insights. And again, thanks for all of this up to now.
You're welcome.
Excellent. So, guys, we will be switching to a break right now. It'll be a little bit longer than the previous ones, but again, we'll be back after this with Kurish Macaulay with a very, very nice session on Mythbusters on test automation. Again, continue sending us your selfies, please. Submit your suggestions for your lightning talks. And we'll be back after the break. Thank you very much.